one subject area to do that as well. So I'll be interested to see what they do.
Yeah, I will too. I don't know if you remember when some teachers came and talked to you at the beginning of the year about starting grade level meetings. So they've been having their own sort of like PLCs with grade levels after school. That's been very successful this year. And I got the minutes from third grade today. And they want to continue it next year. And two things they want to talk about throughout the year. They want to talk about writing, they want to talk about math. So I'm very encouraged that they're going to continue this on their own. So.
Any other questions?
I may have missed this, and I apologize. What is this, what's the gap that this is filling? Or is it just a different approach that they were asking for?
Really three things. We weren't seeing students become more proficient in writing. Teachers felt frustrated that they didn't feel like they could teach writing very well, which Buffalo Jones teachers feel this has helped them a lot, learn how to be a teacher of writing. I don't know what the third thing was, but pretty much the writing. Oh, the fact that we have new standards, and there was nothing on argumentative writing within our current textbook, and this program does go into that.
And did I hear you say, did I hear you say that the concept of implementing this or trying it out might use library books?
Uses library books and uses our current textbooks.
So there's a curriculum need for library books.
Honestly, the Buffalo Jones librarian had everything in her library already, so she didn't have to buy anything extra. I was actually kind of surprised about that.
It's
Yeah,
kind
I
of nice.
said
We
that a
don't
little.
want,
I
yeah,
said
a
that wrong.
little bazinga-ish.
Yeah.
But it's nice to actually hear about kids using a textbook instead of a tool or a device. I mean, I'm not against tools or devices, everybody knows that, but it's nice to just imagine a student holding a book.
Well, we've heard so much about from the librarians
Yeah.
and from teachers about young minds just enjoying a book. Remember when I was at age, pictures real quick too. And now we've got sort of a strategy for incorporating it. And I know we have with other curriculum, but we're contemplating it specifically with this, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I hope this is really successful, because as I read the standards, writing is so much more important now than it ever was before, and it's integrated into all of these subject areas. So if this can improve writing itself, it's going to be reflected in all of the other subject areas as well, and that would be great.
Yeah, I agree with you. Writing is thinking. We're asking our kids to think.
So this is supplemental in addition to what we're already doing.
It would probably replace what we're currently doing.
Okay.
We're currently using the writing pieces within Houghton Mifflin. Houghton Mifflin is a comprehensive program, which the writing piece in it isn't very strong. So I don't agree with teachers for being frustrated with that piece of it. And we really haven't looked at anything in addition to that, because I thought it would be a lot more expensive. This is relatively cheap.
Is there, again, on data, Dr. Dennis has rubbed off, and kind of feel like I have to hold on to data now. Will we have hard data that you can hold on to after another year? I'm just asking the same question in another way. I guess I want to make sure that we have a measuring stick that we're going to be able to use to say this curriculum is what we need and this is why.
I think we'll really have some good student data, student writing samples, pre-post that we can look at. So
It just seems so subjective to me to read someone, a kiddo's writing to me just seems very subjective. I don't know how we would measure that, but I'm sure educators know that. So
it is hard, and right now on our readiness rubric, we do have writing on there. So the Buffalo Jones teachers are taking that task on to recreate the rubric to go with that, so that we can assess what that writing needs to look like. So we're currently working on that.
I'm kind of surprised this curriculum doesn't help provide a rubric or some
It
kind
does.
of. Oh, okay.
But they're tweaking it just a little bit
Good.
to us.
Good. Okay, sorry.
With no official textbook, based off of the parent reaction we've had to engage new board, is there an issue that we're not having a textbook for this? Do you foresee the need for parent meetings on this? Like,
for Engage New York because of the backlash that we've seen there?
I don't know, it's really using our current Houghton Mifflin series, which we'll be able to use that a lot. And like I said, the library books, because you're really looking at a piece of text. You could even use something online, looking at a piece of text and analyzing that according to the different structures here. So I could foresee this being used in science, I could see it being used in social studies with the current materials we already have.
Dr.
This is a pilot program, so your policy for us to proceed with that program, but we'll take board action. Not asking for that tonight unless the board feels comfortable with going to move forward with this pilot program. But if not tonight, we will need action at the next meeting on May the 4th. Really up to you.
Does anyone feel inclined to make a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion, we approve the empowering writers as a pilot program for K students for 1 year.
I would like to wait. I would like to be able to have parents be able to hear the program that we've had today, watch it on YouTube before we vote. So I would like to hold off. So is there a second? No, the motion dies. And we'll wait till next meeting. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second curriculum presentation tonight is a brief update on where we are with Engage New York. The last time we were here, which was about 2 meetings ago, we shared with you the process that we had gone through in evaluating the program, the data that we collected, and what our best thinking was at the time. What we have done since that time is what I want to share with you tonight. We're not asking for any action. We will come back to you either the last meeting of May or the first meeting of June to request some kind of action. So really, this is divided into 2 parts. Leanne's going to share with you K-6, where things stand, and then I will share with you at the secondary level what's happening since we last talked.
Okay, after the committee met to talk about Engage New York, and we knew that the modifications were something that we needed to really put into place, some of the teachers on the committee said that this was going to take a lot of time. They didn't feel like they had the time, but they were very comfortable with the math coaches helping with the modifications. So what the math coaches did is they went to the buildings and they received input from the teachers so that we could make sure that we had every possible scenario for modifications that we needed. Just as an example, Rod Willis is at Buffalo Jones. He is the math coach there. He talked to teachers in his PLC, was able to get input about modifications from them. He has also been kind of a buddy school to Edith Sharman and Georgia Matthews this year. He went to both of those schools' faculty meetings and was able to gather input from them. All the coaches came back to the meeting and we just brainstormed all the modifications that were needed to the program. We also looked at the document that you received last time, I think at the last meeting, for some of the challenges and things that were in there and compared what those modifications were. We came up with a list of about 35 modifications that were needed. Then we tried to consolidate them into categories that were very similar. So what you have in your document in front of you is the seven categories that we came up with. We estimate that this is probably going to take about 40 hours to complete the work on getting the modifications in place. We started working on one of them the last meeting, and we spent 2 hours and got a little ways down the road, but not very far. So the categories are delivery of instruction and strategies. You can see how many different things that we were able to group under strategies. The assessment, we heard that the mid-module assessment, the end of the year module assessment was too difficult. We needed to do something there, so we're working on that piece of it. The homework was difficult for parents, it was difficult for kids, it was difficult for kids who were absent, so that's something we're going to work on. The parent communication was not effective this year, so again, that's something that we want to improve on. We had difficulty with special education kids needing modifications, and again, that's something we'll work on. The fluency fluency piece, we found that the fluency piece in this was not very strong, so that's another piece of it. And then we're not getting through the whole thing, so there's something that we need to do with the pacing, there's something that we need to either take out or switch around. So again, those are the things that we will be working with, but we have a plan to look at that. So that's elementary.
When we come back, as I said, in late May, early June, we will ask for a one-year pilot of these modifications. We don't want to come to you and ask for your approval on something that we can't explain to you what it is. So we'll give you as clear an explanation as we can, and at that time we're going to be asking for a one-year pilot to test these out, again to evaluate where we are, and we'll come back to you in a year with that information. At the secondary level, immediately after the decision was made, or the recommendation was made by the teacher committee, not to make a decision at this point on the math curriculum, we started pulling in resources from a variety of companies. And on the document you have a list of about 8 different companies, products that we have requested. And I would just point out Eureka Math, which is on the list, is Engage New York in printed form. They took the same curriculum and it's in a textbook form. So that is one of the products that the secondary people are going to be looking at and are looking at. We knew going into this, one of the most important considerations is we want the curriculum to be aligned with the standards. And so they are using a rubric to help them look at each of the curriculum products. And the rubric asks about, or takes them through questions on the focus and the depth of the curriculum on the topics that are covered by the standards, the coherence of learning across and between grade levels, the rigor that's required, the conceptual understanding, the fluency again, the application of problems. It also talks or asks about how well that curriculum would work with a diverse student body, as well as the embedded differentiation within that curriculum. So we're in the process of looking at it. We have met twice, and actually there have been some additional times when the materials have been available and teachers could come in and look at them from the committee. You can also see the committee there. We have 10 people, 7 teachers, 3 coaches from middle and high school, 5 middle school, 5 high school people. I would love to have some parents be a part of this as well, so if there are parents who would be interested, give me a call. I'd love to have some additional help with this. We are going to be meeting again this week, and then hopefully narrowing down, we'll have an expo for teachers then when we've narrowed it to 2 or 3 that we think are the finalists, have some more teachers come in and get some additional feedback that way. Again, our goal is to come back to you by the end of May or early June to share with you our recommendation. So we would be glad to answer any questions you have at this point on our update.
Just a dying curiosity here, I probably should know this on number 2 there for the first level that Leanne was talking about. What's an exit ticket?
An exit ticket was, Marcia, you want to explain that?
At the end of each lesson, in order for it's a formative assessment that is embedded in the Engage New York curriculum. At the end of each new lesson, there is an exit ticket which the teacher can then use to assess the student's understanding of the topic. It's usually 1 or 2 questions that are directly related to what the topic was, what the lesson was taught. And what I like to see teachers do is pick up the exit tickets and kind of go through them and say, these kids understood it, these kind of understood it, and these didn't, and then they can differentiate the instruction based on that assessment.
And if I may, what's the difference between the exit ticket and the concept now of assessing after each topic instead of after each 3 topics?
The Engage New York modules are divided up into topics based on the standards. So, for instance, right now we're doing an algebra topic. So we might have 4 or 5 lessons on one particular area of algebra, and then their thinking is maybe because the mid-module assessments might assess up to 17 lessons, that maybe they would get better information if they did it after a specific topic area instead of waiting until they taught several lessons to assess.
So
As we're doing the module, we want the assessments to inform our instruction. And so these aren't considered summative assessments, but more formative assessments, so that the teachers know, which kids got it and which ones didn't.
I think the teachers felt like they were covering too much material without, finding out how they were doing in between times. So,
Thank you.
That's a good way of putting it. I mean, if you go each module and you have a kind of a wrap-up, that's great.
I think one of the things that I appreciate from Dr. Dennis and Mrs. Roderick and the folks that are evaluating this curriculum, that I think they're really taking it seriously. Because once this curriculum, whatever it is, math curriculum is adopted, it's what we have for 7 years. So what we're hearing from the evaluation is there's a lot of good things in this curriculum, and it aligns with the college and career readiness standards, which is good. But we're also hearing a few problems. Some problems being raised by parents, some problems being raised by teachers. Hopefully, these modifications will address many of those problems. So as you learn more, as the community has an opportunity to learn more, as we move through this process over the next few weeks, as Ms. Roderick said, they're going to spend 40 hours just in K-6 developing the modifications for this curriculum to try to improve upon it. So I think this is being taken seriously. I think we want to listen to our parents, we want to listen to the teachers, because the teachers are the ones that's going to be teaching the curriculum, and that we make a wise decision maybe a year from now of whether we're going to adopt this curriculum or we're going to move to something different. So I think that's my perception there, and I think there's been a lot of meaningful things brought to the forefront. But no matter what curriculum we adopt, it's going to be challenging for our kids. It's going to be challenging for all kids. So they're going to have to be able to write, they're going to have to be able to think at a much higher level and applying their math skills. So that's going to be present no matter what. So.
Any other comments? Jean?
I just wanted to say thank you to the committee. I really feel that math and language arts are the 2 bedrocks that we're building on for the whole rest of the child's education. And it concerns me that this is not as effective as we had hoped or would like. So I'm hoping that these modifications that you're going to look into and propose will be effective. Is there any opportunity, though, as we go through the year to maybe make adjustments sort of when we see things come up, rather than having, one type of program that we carry all the way through, just for research sake, sort of to see how that does? I'd really like to see the modifications sort of be evolving and maybe changing over the year as problems or issues come up that you can address right away.
That will be the case. Just as we've tried to do this year when we've identified specific problems, we've tried to address those. The same would be true in the future.
Good.
So it'd be a living pilot, and it would definitely be.
3 questions.
Oh, wow. Hold on, everybody.
On the first page, purpose of modification for Engage New York, explain to me, or help me realize that second bullet, what's that gonna do? Create a student-focused program that supports students and their achievement. So, are you talking, so when kids are successful, you'll be giving them certificates, or what's that all
We
about?
just really want to focus it on kids, make sure that what we're doing is really focused on student achievement so that we can get those results. You know, it's all about getting results for kids, but it needs to be student-focused.
Okay, because when I read that, I just visualized something totally different, so that's what I wanted to ask. And then on the second page, under the series to examines, like the McGraw deal,
Right.
there's a 2 behind that.
Yeah, that company offers 2 products, we're looking at both of them, and the same is true of the Houghton Mifflin.
Okay. And then the last question, our math coaches are at the middle school and the high school, and aren't we sharing those with the grade schools this coming year? Is that, or was that a different coach?
That's different. The coaches we have at the middle school and the high school are instructional coaches, they're cross-curricular. The math coaches, specific to the math curriculum, are at the elementary, or K-6 level.
Oh, okay. I knew there was something right there, so that's what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
I like Engage New York. I actually get it. I can help my boys with homework. So for that, I'm grateful. And if you saw my math grades, you would know why. But what I'm concerned about is that the board faculty meetings that we've gone to, several teachers have said, are we wasting our time doing Engage New York? Are we just going to change it? And they've been worried about that. Has that been something that has gone throughout this committee at all? Or have they really seriously looked at just going a completely different route?
Are you talking about this,
In the case.
the elementary?
In the K-6, yeah.
K-6.
We've talked about that, you know, they just don't want to they want to land somewhere, that they want to teach something for several years. And I think they are worried that this will go away.
Are we
yeah, have
staying
talked
with
about
it out of fear of not wanting to do something brand new again next year?
No,
I think we're staying with it because we feel like this is a product that's aligned, and with some modification, it can meet our needs. And that's what we need to find out.
That's where I was trying to get at. I just don't want to be doing it because we've spent all this time and effort on it, so we're not going to change because we have so much invested in it, which, you know, is a valid point. But if we're not teaching our kids the way they need to be taught, or it's not working for the teachers, because, you know, I've heard some teachers who, you know, and again, I'm getting different stories where they're like, oh, we can't add anything, we can't supplement, we can't go to our other teachers and collaborate. And then at the board faculty meeting, Dr. Dennis is like, where have you heard that? Please add to it. You know, go at your pace, go slower, go faster, work. But the teachers have some, I mean, it's at those board faculty meetings have said, well, we can't do that. Or don't tell anybody I'm doing this anyway.
That's one of the things the coaches want to do as they start looking at the modifications, is they want to make sure that we put together a document that there's nothing left to interpretation. Everybody knows what the expectations are, so this school isn't interpreting it one way, this school's interpreting it another way, so that, you know, we basically have the expectations out there.
So is that one of the principal reasons why the rubrics will be used by the teachers, but will be revised by the coaches? The coaches are really our focus for consistency, classroom to classroom, and building to building. Or are the teachers?
The rubrics are, the teachers, parents are involved in rubrics, those discussions as well.
Oh, okay, on number 2 there, it says rubrics will be used, but will be revised by coaches.
And the coaches represent their teachers. They're in those PLCs, they're talking to those teachers, and they're getting input from there that they bring to the meetings and they discuss it. You know, well, my teachers think this, my teachers think this.
But there are also teachers involved, and there are parents involved in those discussions.
Collaborative, okay.
Yeah.
This might be a moot question, because I don't, basically it's gonna come down to finances, but do we have enough coaches to appropriately support this curriculum?
We have, I mean, I would love to have more coaches.
Sure.
And at one time when the finances looked more promising, we had a plan to try to move that direction. But given the resources we have, I think that the change we're talking about with coaches and being more equitable in how we use those across the district is our best hope to provide support across 13 buildings.
Jennifer, I'd like to
Sorry, I'm
ask
taking
Board-elect Jennifer Stanley if she has any comments or questions. Did you get the board packet?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions?
No, I think Laura brought some of the concerns up that I would have asked questions about.
And you served on a committee, correct, to help evaluate this, so you have an insight that none of us have, so, great. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Dr. Carlin, let's talk about some policies, or a policy.
So we have one new policy tonight for a first reading. It's policy IIBG, and it deals with computer and device use. This is one that we are recommending some changes over what KSB's model policy is. Basically just to keep consistent with what our practice has been in the district. That first change in the copyright section, KSB's model policy requires proof of purchase to be kept on file in the district office with our size. It's not ever been something that we've been able to manage, so we do require that to be maintained, and we hold the employee responsible to be able to provide that if we need that. The section on installations actually just kind of dated, probably 10 or 15 years ago. In order to install anything on a, and this policy dealt more specifically at that point with district computers. You basically had to have somebody from the district install software. Now with tablets and more handheld devices, it's so easy to be able to put an app on something. The installation really doesn't have to be limited just to district staff on all devices. Now, I will tell you, still on a lot of our computers and hardware, we still restrict students and staff from being able to install software, but if you put it in the policy that you can't do it, then they can't install apps on the tablets. So we accomplished that through our language and our acceptable use policies. And then on the second page, the last thing is under lost, stolen, or damaged computers and equipment. And we just have language added there that allows some judgment to be exercised when something is damaged. There are times where something's damaged and it truly is not the fault of the person. The circumstances lend itself to that, and this is not a huge problem. It's something we look at on a case-by-case basis, and the change in language just gives flexibility to allow that judgment. So this policy's been around for a long time. I think first came around in 1992, so it has seen several variations over that time. And at this point, I'd ask if there's any questions.
I have a question on that second page with regards to neglect. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but if there's an accident because somebody, and I think you gave an example of one being on someone's desk and it got dropped and the glass shattered, are you considering that neglect because they weren't watching it at that particular second when it accidentally got knocked off?
That's one where we're applying some judgment, and we'd be looking at all the circumstances that are involved there. And if it was a situation where, say there was a device on a teacher's desk and there was maybe an altercation, say in the classroom, and the desk got bumped and the device fell off, should the teacher be responsible for that? Probably not. And that we would look at the specific circumstances around that. And if we go with the standard KASB language, I don't think we have the latitude to make exceptions there. That's the thinking behind it.
Well, I'm not seeing the says students and staff members shall be responsible. And again, I may be reading too much into the neglect as well, but it doesn't seem like it has the leeway that you're wanting.
Well, we need to make that very clear. Now, let me give you a real live example.
A personal and life example?
Up close and personal. You remember the little rainstorm we had last week? That it rained about 20 minutes and it came down hard. And we were worried about getting kids home because it was getting, you know, it was at that time in the high school where they were adjourning school and getting on buses. Pouring down rain, couldn't see. I walk out of my office, walk to the door, come back into my office, and if you see where my laptop is, it's raining on my laptop. Not anywhere else, but it's coming down the side of the wall on my laptop.
That's neglect, Dr. A. You should have
Totally
been there.
destroys it, so this needs to be clear.
I would like, with the exception of superintendent.
You should have had an umbrella handy by your laptop.
I felt like, it's gonna date me, Charlie Brown, it only rains on Charlie Brown.
Who in Southwest
But
Kansas?
I got witnesses that actually saw it raining on my computer.
You can approve it live.
And I've been in the office 20 years, it has never rained in that spot.
Well, and our intention here, and we can sure look at that, Laura, but is, if it was an intentional act or something that would be neglect or abuse, but in a circumstance like the one on the laptop, we would want the latitude. Whereas if we leave the language that, with what they have here, it was Dr. Ava's laptop, but this certainly was an example of something beyond his control. So,
Or at the discretion of
Well,
whoever.
or may. Students and staff members may be responsible, instead of shall be responsible.
If your little lawyer wand, just leave it right over there.
one word, but yeah, we can sure make that change.
I mean, I think that gives you more discretion.
That's probably a good idea, because then you don't have one employee saying, well, you know, made me responsible for this, but you let off, you know, somebody else who did something similar. I mean, when you're talking about situations, that gives you the discretion, and it really can't be challenged as easily, so.
Anybody other than a lawyer want to speak up? Just kidding, you guys.
Well, I guess if the language is not changed, I'll pony up the money.
All right, any other discussion? Thanks, Dr. Carlin.
And that'll be on the consent agenda with that change. Next time, if you have anything that comes up in the meantime, please let me know. Otherwise, it'll be on the consent agenda.
All right, board open discussion.
I did want to just mention something. When we had Jean Snyder in this evening to recognize her, I think that's like a really good example of the variety of situations that our staff encounters on a daily basis, and how well-trained and how mature they need to be to handle these for the safety of our children. And, you know, I think there may be a misconception that it's routine and, you know, really not as critical as certainly this situation was. So I hope that that kind of brings other discussion to mind about how important it is to keep our good staff and to train them and to make sure that, you know, when these really important things occur, that we all act in the correct way. That was so impressive. That little guy was just so small, and someone else might have just not even noticed that there was a problem with him with really terrible results. So that was really impressive. What a great staff we have.
Watching Jean and Michael's mom hug and watching mom cry was one of my favorite memories of being a board member, so. And no, I'm not gonna cry again. Good. I'm glad you said something, Jean, that was really awesome.
Something I wanted to comment on, especially considering the revenue numbers that came out today. And I believe we're down even more now to another $256 million, if I read correctly. just looking at our consent agenda, I think speaks volumes for how we're handling that shortfall, because a lot of school districts have had to close early, and except for the snow days that we haven't used, I don't think we're gonna be looking at that. While we've had to cut back on music in certain areas, we haven't fully cut the programs. We have 2 sections here of entrepreneurship. We have a section of intermediate AWS welding. I know that Jean mentioned that ELA and math are the bedrocks, but some of these are the ways that some of our students can also excel and show how well they're doing and get them ready for the real world. And I think you guys are doing a great job with the hand that you've been dealt. So thank you so much for making sure that not all, I know we've had big cuts and we've had to curtail here and there, but we haven't had to get rid of anything like that. And I know that's where some kids really need to be, because they don't do well in math or ELA. They need those other things to be successful.
I'd like to announce that Tim was selected to the KASB leadership for tomorrow, class of 2015-2016. So, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Any other open discussion? Okay. That being said, the next meeting will be on Monday, May 4th at 6 o'clock in this room. And we have a reason to go, which reason to go into executive session for the 30 minutes.
Madam President, I move that we move into executive session for matters of employer or employee negotiations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize the resolution of the negotiation issues for 30 minutes beginning at 7:20.
Motion by Laura, second by Alex. Any discussion? All those in favor?